Hello and welcome back to your new section, difference between OLAP and OLTP. So I have put all the topics into one same topic, and so we're going to learn about OLAP and OLTP in details in this section. So this is a little bit of lengthy topic, So we are going to study what is OLAP and what is OLTP, and we're going to learn about even the difference as well. And yeah, let's go ahead and start learning. So what is OLAP? So OLAP is the primary objective of OLAP is data analysis and not the data processing. So online analytical processing, a category of software tools which provides analysis of the data for the business decisions. So OLAP systems allow users to analyze database information from multiple database systems at one time. What is OLTP? So the primary objective of this OLTP is data processing and not the data analysis. So online transaction processing, which is shortly known as OLTP, it supports the transactions oriented applications in a three-tier architecture. OLTP administers day-to-day transaction with an organization. So next one is, let's learn about next example. So let's understand what are the different examples of OLAP and what are the examples of OLTP systems. So examples of OLAP systems. Any data warehouse system is an OLAP system essentially. So the uses of the OLAP are something like this. A company might compare, their mobile phone sales in September with the sales in October. They then compare those results with another location which may be stored in a separate database. And another example would be like Amazon analyzes purchases by its customers to come up with a personalized homepage with the products which likely interest to their customers. So I've been ordering on Amazon over a period of time, and they know what kind of the products I order through Amazon, and they would come up with my customized page where they would put all the products which I might be interested in. So that's about the examples of OLAP. So let's learn about what are the different type of examples we have on OLTP. So an example of the OLTP system is like ATM center, right? So you have all the bank ATM centers. Assume that a couple has a joint account with a bank. One day, both simultaneously reach different ATM, the centers at precisely the same time, and want to withdraw the total amount present in their bank account. So, however, the person that completes the authentication process first will be able to get the money. So, in this case, OLTP system makes sure that the withdrawn amount will be never more than the amount present in the bank. Please pay attention. So, two people are trying to access the same account and trying to withdraw this, the money from the same account at two different locations. But one of the person completes his authentication process before the other person. Then the bank would allow that person, the person who has completed the authentication for the first time, to withdraw the money. And as soon as you withdraw the money, the remaining balance would be immediately reflected on the account. So the key to note here that OLTP systems are optimized for the transactional superiority instead of the data analysis. So here the data analysis is not a focus. Is here the transactional superiority means the other person who has completed the authentication, it gives the priority to that person. Then other examples of the OLTP are this online banking, online airline ticket booking, because you book the ticket and you instantly get what is the price and your ticket is booked. Sending a text message to someone, the order and entering an order, add a book, to a shopping cart. These are all some of the examples of OLTP systems. So let's learn about what all the benefits of the OLAP. So OLAP creates a single platform for all type of business analytical needs, which includes planning, budgeting, forecasting, and analysis. Second one is consistent information and computations. The main benefit of OLAP is the consistency of information and the calculations. Third thing is easy handling of the security restrictions. So you can easily apply security restrictions on the users and the objects to comply with the regulations and protect the sensitive data, because there are certain regulations from the federal government when you're accessing the customer sensitive information. So you have to make sure, like, you're handling all those aspects in your database. So, and data warehouse pretty much supports most of those regulations. What are the drawbacks of OLAP service? So you need an IT expert for the implementation, right? So implementation and maintenance are dependent on the IT professional, because the traditional OLAP tools require complicated modeling procedures. You have to have an expertise in information technology, the programming or database handling. So those kind of expertise are needed for this OLAP and managing the OLAP. So OLAP tools need the cooperation between the people of various departments to be effective, which might always not be possible. Because when you are working in an organization, so what happens is most of the time the teams work in silos. So say for example, I belong to a team A and another team is team B. So there should be a coordination between them. But unfortunately, or whether it's good or bad, all the teams, they work in silos. They don't care about what is team B, what happened to the team B, and why, whether the team B is required any data from team A or team A is required any data from team B. So this, the people generally, it's a human tendency, right, to work in silos. So that's why, in most of the OLAP services and the OLAP data, it is based on the coordination between the multiple teams. That might become difficult, if it is not managed properly. That's about OLAP. Let's move on with the OLTP benefits. So it takes care of daily transactions of an organization. So it's basically administration. So it takes care of administering the daily transactions of an organization. It helps in increasing the productivity. Thus, it helps in increasing the customer base of an organization. So OLTP widens the customer base of an organization by simplifying the individual process. What do you mean by that? Say, I am a bank customer and I go to a bank, and rather than just going to the bank, to a physical bank, I just open up my the website and I would complete my transaction. That's how I'm going to save the money. So as and when the more and more people are accessing the website, the people who are going to the bank would become less, and there is no waiting time in the bank, right? So you are just able to transfer the money from one person to the other person so easily in the fraction of a second. So this is all done by the OLTP. That's the biggest benefit of OLTP. What are the drawbacks? When you have a benefits, obviously there would be some drawbacks with this every system. So if the OLTP system faces hardware failures, then the online transaction gets severely affected. So you have to have your hardware facilities up to date all the time, because the OLTP is supporting your daily business. OLTP systems allow the multiple users to access and change the same data at the same time, which may many times create an unprecedented situation. Sometimes when what happens, right, you are accessing certain information from that application, and other person is also sometimes accessing the same application, same information from another location on the same website. Sometimes there is a lag in providing the information, because two people are trying to access the same information. So that lag might cause some kind of inconvenience to the end customers. So these are some of the the benefits and drawbacks of OLAP and OLTP systems. Now understand what is the difference between OLTP and OLAP in detail with a certain parameters. All right, so let's learn one by one. Okay, so the first parameter would be the process. So what is OLTP? It is an online transactional system. It manages the database modification, and OLAP is an online analysis and the data retrieving process. As I said before, OLTP is meant for data processing and OLAP is meant for data analysis. The next one is the characteristics. So OLTP, it is characterized by the large number of short online transactions. And OLAP is characterized by large volume of the data. So OLTP, it characterized with large number of large numbers of short online. That means you are performing only the read, write, update, on the data. So you will have these transactions very often in the system. But in the case of OLAP, what happens is it's a large volume of the data, and you are performing analysis on the data. The third parameter is functionality. So OLTP is an online database modifying system, and OLAP is an online database query management system. So it's online. You are manipulating the data at the online and at the database level, but in OLAP is online for the query management system. The next parameter is method. So OLTP uses traditional DBMS, that is database management system, but OLAP uses the data warehouse. The next parameter is query. So insert, update, and delete. So like I already mentioned many times, so these are the information, like insert and update and delete information from the database. That means you are basically manipulating the data then and there. But in case of the OLAP, you would just do the select operations. The next parameter is table. The tables in OLTP databases are normalized, but in tables in OLAP database are not normalized. We already discussed about what is normalization and all, what is 3NF normalization in my previous section. The next the parameter is style. So OLTP is designed to have a fast response time, low data redundancy, and is normalized. A data warehouse is created uniquely so that it can integrate between data sources for building a consolidated database. So I have tried my level best to put the more and more the parameters and the differences between the OLTP and OLAP, so you would understand the difference more precisely and from all the angles. All right, let's move on to the next page where we have these differences. The next parameter is source. For OLTP is the transactions or the sources of the data. That means the end users who put the information, that is the source for OLTP, but different OLTP databases are the sources for the OLAP. The next parameter is data integrity. So the data integrity, OLTP database must maintain the data integrity constraint, and OLAP database does not get frequently modified, hence the data integrity is not an issue. The next parameter is response time. So in OLTP, its response time is in millisecond, but in OLAP, response time is in seconds to minutes. Parameter data quality. So in OLTP, the data in the OLTP database is always detailed and organized, but the data in the OLAP process might not be organized. The next parameter is usefulness. So it helps to control and run the fundamental business task, and it helps with the planning, problem solving, and decision support. So OLTP, it helps control and run the fundamental business task. That means it is used by the end customers. But OLAP, it helps in planning, the problem solving, and decision support by the senior management of the company. The challenge. Database historically have been a development project which may prove costly to build. But an OLAP cube is not an open SQL Server data warehouse. Therefore, technical knowledge and the experience is essential to manage the OLAP server. All right, let's now move on to the next page. When it comes to the operation, right? So the allows, basically the OLTP allows only read and write operations, but in OLAP only the read and rarely write. Very rarely you are going to manipulate the data. The next parameter is audience. In OLTP, it is a market-oriented process, but OLAP, it is a customer-oriented process. The next parameter is query type. So queries in this process are standardized and simple, but the complex queries are there in the case of OLAP. That means because since you are performing a very small limited operations, the OLTP runs with a very standardized simple queries, but in the case of OLAPs, you're going to join between the multiple tables and the multiple database servers to fetch the data. That's where your querying is going to get complicated. Next is the backup. So In OLTP, what happens is the complete backup of the data combined with the incremental backup. So you have to take the backup of every time the data is transacted. But OLAP you only need a backup from time to time. Backup is not important compared to the OLAP. So because since the OLTP is the data which is received from the customers, you need to make sure that you don't miss that data. And in the case of design, so database design is application oriented. So that means you are designing this database based on what type of application you're providing to your end customers. So for example, like database design changes with the industry like retail, airline, banking, etc. But in the case of OLAP, the database design is subject oriented. For example, database design changes with the subjects like sales, marketing, purchasing, etc. The next parameter is user type. So in the case of OLTP, right, it is used by the data critical users like the clerk, DBA, and database professionals. But in the case of OLAP, it is used by the data knowledge users like the workers, managers, and the CEOs. So there are a few other the differences. In the case of purpose, right? So the OLTP is designed for the real-time business operations, but in the OLAP is designed for analysis of the business measures by category and attributes. The next parameter is performance metric. In the case of OLTP, the transaction throughput is the performance metric and the query throughput is the performance metric. So what do you mean by transaction throughput? So when say you have an application A, or you can say it's a banking application, and this application is worldwide across is available across United States, and you have customers also across United States. So the the customers who would be accessing the data of their the accounts data from that applications are accessing at the same time. So and they would be performing certain transactions. For example, I might be transferring the money from my account to my friend account, and that person might be transferring from his account to my account, or I might be just checking. I'm just the pulling the account statement. So these are some of the operations which are performed on the application. So here the transaction throughput means when you send a query to the application, right? So how fast it can retrieve the information. That is called as transaction throughput. So here that is the the scale for measuring the performance of OLTP. But in the case of OLAP, right, so there is no customers are accessing the OLAP system. So the query throughput, that means whatever the query you fire on the data warehouse for the analysis purpose. Say, for example, you want to combine between the sales, marketing, research, finance, and you want to come up with a new insight from the data. So obviously you're going to join the data between the multiple tables. So in that case, how fast the query is going to provide you the results, that is the measure for the performance of the OLAP. The next one is number of users. In OLTP, this kind of database users allows thousands of users. But in OLAP, so the kind of database allows only hundreds of users, because OLTP holds only the day-to-day data. That's where the many people can access the data subsequently, means concurrently. But in the case of OLAP, right, it's like a huge amount of data at one place. So if many people are accessing the data from there, so it's going to affect the application performance or reporting performance. The next parameter is the productivity. So in case of OLTP, right, so it helps to increase users' self-service and the productivity, and it helps in the case of OLAP, helps to increase the productivity of the business analyst. In terms of process, what is the difference between OLTP and OLAP? So in OLTP, it provides fast result for daily views data, but in case of OLAP, it ensures that the response to the query is quicker consistently. What is the next parameter? Characteristics. So it is easy to create and maintain in case of OLTP, but in case of OLAP, it lets the user create a view with the help of a spreadsheet. So these are some of the These are some of the differences between OLTP and OLTP and OLAP. So let's understand, let's summarize what we have learned so far. So OLAP is a tool to analyze data stored in a database. So online analytical processing is a category of software tools that analyze the data stored in a database. So OLTP supports 3 tiers architectures. Online transactional processing, OLTP, shortly known as like OLTP, it supports the transaction-oriented applications in a 3-tier architecture. OLAP creates a single platform for all type of business analysis needs, which includes the planning, budgeting, forecasting, and analysis. OLTP is useful for daily administrative tasks. So like I said, where the customer is accessing the data, or it might be a department within the organization which performs its daily transactions. So OLTP is useful for those things. OLAP is characterized by a large volume of data. So OLAP is characterized by the large volume because, like we already discussed, OLAP is nothing but data warehouse, and it gets the data from multiple sources. That's how it is large volume of data. OLTP is characterized by the large numbers of short online transactions. Like we already discussed, so OLTP is meant for day-to-day transactions. Data warehouse is a unique integrated system for a particular business. So like I already mentioned, so data warehouse is integration of data from multiple sources. So this is all about the difference between OLAP and OLTP. So this is a very important session because when we talk about data warehouse, right, so OLAP is the main thing. And sometimes the people get confused between OLAP and OLTP. So I would request to go through this topic once again, one other time, to make sure so you understand completely. I hope you enjoyed this session. I will see you in the next chapter. Thank you.